Well, good afternoon, and welcome to this celebration of life for Barbara Canning. We gather in this, what is, we call a sacred space. It's sacred because everywhere in the world is sacred. God created it. But it's sacred because there are so many sacred memories here as well. And we're gathering to celebrate the life of Barbara and to give thanks for who she was, for the love that she shared, and for the way that her life became part of this story of this church, but also each of our lives. Maybe we come with sorrow because love has been interrupted. Maybe we come with gratitude because love was fully given. But also I think we come with hope, trusting that nothing rooted in love is ever truly lost. Today we remember that Barbara's life was deeply shared by love, especially the love that she shared with her partner Barbara. This service holds two stories, a life lived and a love shared. So I invite you to pray with me. Loving and faithful presence, you have been our dwelling place in every generation, and we thank you for Barbara, for her years, her faithfulness, her relationships, for the life she built and the love she nurtured. We thank you too for the love that she shared with Barbara, for companionship and devotion and mutual care, for a love that shaped who she was and sustained even after Barbara passed. Hold us now as we take time to remember. Make room for our tears. Make room for our smiles. Let this time be holy, woven with honesty, with tenderness, and with grace. Amen. So Barbara had a song that she wanted us to sing, and it was God's Eye is on the Sparrow. So I invite you to stand or sit, whichever is more comfortable for you. I'm going to invite Greg to come forward and share the reading there Barbara picked.
There's a story in the early Christian community and it was a hard time then with the Roman Empire and other people threatening their existence. But people went to the elder and ancient apostle John and asked, John, tell us what to do. Tell us something new. And he always said, my dear children, love one another. And it was around that time that the Apostle Paul was giving instructions to the Christian community in Corinth. And here's what he had to say. If I speak in the tongues of humanity or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs.
And our second reading is just a short one from Matthew 5. Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on the mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him and he began to teach them. And he said, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Yeah, we're going to have a time of sharing, and I know Susan and Greg want to share. There will be a time after that if anybody else wants to come and share. I would invite you to make sure that your mouth is just above the microphone. That way the recording that we have, people who are online will hear as well. But this is our time to remember Barbara, not only for what she did, but for who she was among us. She was a really long-time member of this congregation and a very familiar presence and a steady part of the life of this church. But also her life was really intertwined with Barbara, so you never had one without the other much. Or if you did, the other one was not far behind. They shared so many years of love and commitment and companionship. And yesterday we interred Barbara's ashes next to Barbara Hawes. And we shared that, we sometimes sanitize things and make people saintly. And it's also okay to remember them exactly as they are. And that's what we did yesterday. Remembering that there were times where she got a little cranky. And don't we all? And that's a part of who she was. So as Greg and Susan come up and start their time of sharing together, we're going to have a PowerPoint that I'm not sure which one of you prepared it, but okay. We're going to have a PowerPoint of pictures that will go around on a loop. So if you miss it the first time, it will go around again while they're talking.
Well, first of all, that's the way our church is too. You got to be right like a rock singer. First of all, I want to thank Catherine for all she's done, and long distance emails, all that stuff of putting this together for us. And what I want to share is that tomorrow is Barb's birthday. And I got her a card. I mean, like maybe a year ago. Anyway, I just wanted to share with you, and I'm not sanitizing this either. So, Barb and I shared a bedroom together. It was about not even an 8 by 10. We shared a bed too. One of these days I'm going to come across a clown. We had a stuffed clown, and she would always come on my side of the bed. So I put this stuffed clown between us, and that poor clown over the years, its face just pushed over. And she was 4.5 years older than I, and we didn't like each other, because I always wanted to tag along. Of course, the little sister, and there's just the two of us. And she didn't want me coming along, However, when we finally grew up in our 50s, no, I'm kidding, we became friends. I said yesterday in sharing that she complained a lot. And I said and I would say she's very East Coast. But our parents and relatives, they complained a lot too, so. And Greg just said to me the other day, I was driving and I said something, he said, did you get Barb's complaining? And so, she complained about the food at the assisted living where she lived. And I said to her, other than Hope's cooking, you ate frozen dinner, so stop. But it took me a year to say that. We so appreciate the last 2.5 years we had with Barb. She just lived like 10 minutes away, 15 if there was a traffic jam. And she made good friends there, and she became part of that community, and that was really nice. And we are missing her. And in the card, if you were born on the 26th, I was going to read that, but I have a poem I'd rather read. If you were born on the 26th of the month, one of your major characteristics is tenacity. So this is a poem I read for Barb Hawes's. It's not my favorite poem, but it's my favorite poet, John O'Donohue. On the death of the beloved. Though we need to weep your loss, you dwell in that safe place in our hearts, where no storm or night or pain can reach you. Your love was like the dawn, brightening over our lives, awakening beneath the dark, a further adventure of color. The sound of your voice found us, a new music that brightened everything. Whatever you unfolded in your gaze, quickened in the joy of its being, you placed smiles like flowers on the altar of the heart. Your mind always sparkled with wonder at things. We look toward each other no longer. From the old distance of our names, now you dwell inside the rhythm of breath, as close to us as to ourselves. Though we cannot see you, with outward eyes, we know your soul's gaze is upon your face. Our soul's gaze is upon your face, smiling back at us from within everything to which we bring our best refinement. When the orchids brighten the earth, darkest winter has turned to spring, may this dark grief flower with hope in every heart that loves you. May you continue to inspire us to enter each day with a generous heart, to serve the call of courage and love, to serve until we see your beautiful face again, in that land where there is no more separation, where all tears will be wiped from our mind, and where we will never lose you again. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
This church was so important to both Barbs, Barb Hawes and Barb Canning. And I want to tell you a little bit about the first I heard of it. There's David, you'll know all about this. There may be other people here that were here for the very beginning of the church, but it was the mid-1970s. I couldn't say precisely what date, but they had, the two Barbs had driven the 3,000 miles out for one of their visits to us, and for them that was nothing but a joyful trip. You know, I think maybe Barb Hawes would have been the hero of long-haul truck drivers because she relished driving. So 3,000 miles away in a ferry boat ride there. Oh no, this was in Indiana. No, when they came to Indiana. Yeah, okay. Anyway, the two Barbs said, we're going to build a church down in Gainesville, Florida. And I was just barely starting out on a building career, and I thought, wow, that's going to be a big project. Who's going to build it for you? And they said, well, we are. And I said, really? Well, that's going to be a complicated task. Well, they did not hesitate. You all did not hesitate, did you, David? And here we are. Here we are standing in this building about 50 years later. Yes, I think so. Is that right? Yes. So I wanted to congratulate and compliment the work of your community within the bigger community here. You know, the Metropolitan Community Church was founded in 1968 in Huntington Beach, California. Probably so many of you know that. It has grown to, by the most recent census, I believe, 172 churches in 20 different countries. You know, in the 1968 time, that was a hard time. There was a lot of prejudice and hostility, and how shameful, you know, hostility from the churches for the LGBTQ community. But the people persevered, you know, and here we are all these years later. So for all your loving work, you're helping to change the world. Speaking for the church that Susan and I come from, the small Langley United Methodist Church, we just celebrated our 20th year as a reconciling congregation, which means that 20 years ago we decided to open our eyes, wake up, and specifically invite LGBTQ individuals and couples into our community. It's been a wonderful thing for us. And in 2023, the Pacific Northwest General Conference, which is Alaska, Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, and part of British Columbia, chose for their bishop a gay African American man to administrate all the churches. So there's still a lot of work to do, but congratulations to each and every one of you, and to your good pastor, Catherine.
There'll be a test for all the people that are part of MCC to see if they know as much as Greg knows about our history. You put some of us to shame. So are there other people who would like to share their memories of Barbara? Yeah, Marge and David. David will be humorous, I know. I keep saying Barbara and Barbara. I never called them Barbara. I only ever called them Canning and Hawes. I never used their first name, ever. That was because we had 6 Barbaras, Mike.
I first met BC, I think in the early 70s. It's been 50 plus years ago, when we were both, thank you, we were both delegates from the local area, the local chapter, to the Florida Nurses Association convention. And as luck would have it, or maybe it was fate, we were seated next to one another at the assembly. And we were diametrically opposed on every issue. She would vote yay, I would vote nay. I would vote yay, she would vote nay. But we became very close colleagues and friends from that day on. I don't know how that happened, but we decided that whatever the issue was, there were different perspectives and we could share those and agree to disagree at times. Well, time went on, and our dates might be a little different, Greg, but our congregation formed in 1983, and we were without a pastor until November of 1984. We called a pastor for the first time, and the Gainesville Sun made a big thing of that. First of all, it was a woman who was going to come pastor the church. Second of all, this was a new congregation, and it was for the gay population. And this was in the Gainesville Sun. Well, BC read that article, and she said to Hawes that I want to go there for my birthday. So they made plans, and the first time that they came to the church was in January of 1985. And if my math is correct, it was 41 years ago today. That was the first time, actually, that we began forming a relationship with my partner and I with Hawes as well as Canning, and we began doing all kinds of social things together. The first night that they came to the church, they came and went, and we had invited them to stay. In those days, we didn't just all scramble out the door after the benediction. There was social things after the service, and we were meeting in the evening, and we had invited BC and BH to participate with us, and that they went out the door. But they came back the next Sunday evening, and again we issued the invitation, and my Methodist forebears would have cringed at this, probably had apoplexy. But as soon as the service was over, the tables came out, and we all played pinochle. Now, that was not known to happen to, one, Christians didn't play cards, and two, they didn't do it in the same building that they worshiped in. That was my heritage. But we all played pinochle, and we had BC and BH and my partner Whit and I had the beginning of many social events together, whether it was going to the beach, whether it was going down a trip down to Tarpon Springs because we wanted Greek food or whatever. We went camping, and it was during a camping trip that we saw advertised nearby the campground that a restaurant had all-you-can-eat crab dinner. BC and I considered that a challenge. So we went to dinner that evening, and after the first big heaping helping of crab, our respective partners excused themselves and went back to the RV and watched a full hour of Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune and came back to pick us up. Except neither of us were willing to throw in the towel at that point. We were up to our elbows in crab. And, well, Barb, one more crab.
So I wore this shirt in honor of Barb Canning because she loves purple and she loved this church more than anything. I met Barb, the first time I met Barb and Barb is when my wife, Nancy, and I came to this church. And they welcomed us, as everyone did, with open arms. We became acquaintances at that time. We talked, we went to lunches and so forth, and we really, really bonded, Nancy and myself and Hawes and Canning. We just enjoyed each other's company, and then Hawes found out that I did a lot of maintenance work and construction work and woodwork, and of course that was right up her alley. You know, she kept this church held together. So before Hawes passed, she said to me, I want you to look after Canning and make sure that she's okay and that the house is taken care of. And that's pretty much how Canning and I became very close. So if Canning needed something fixed at the house, she would call me. You know, I need the screens cleaned, or I need this fixed, or I need this fixed, or the fan in the living room doesn't work. I can't get the front door to close right. So I ended up being basically her maintenance person to start with, and did a lot of painting, a lot of fixing. My daughter Diane would go over and we'd do that. And then the grandkids would go over so they could go swimming in that wonderful pool. But as things went along and you know, Barb was having some health issues. So she would end up going to, one time I remember specifically, she had gone to the ER, the standalone ERs, and she called me. She says, I need you here now. And of course, what did Marge do? But she dropped everything and went to her because she needed me. You know, I had made a promise. And that started a very close journey with us. Anytime she was sick, and then as she got weaker and had more hospitalizations, and her sister would come out, and of course her niece said, yes, it was 7 times in a year. It sure was. But I ended up staying with her, with Canning, at the house because she was afraid to be alone, afraid she'd fall, because she had fallen several times. And when she got out of rehab, I think that's when they did the hip replacement, and they sent her to rehab, wasn't it, Susan? I think. Anyway, she wouldn't let me leave the hospital. I had to stay there with her night and day. And I think that was before you got there. And then when they sent her to rehab, she says, Marge, I'm not staying here alone. I says, well, what do you want me to do? She says, you're going to stay here with me. It wasn't, will you stay with me and help me? And of course, but we had that kind of relationship. You know, Barb was one of the most amazing people and the kindest people. You couldn't always tell it. You couldn't always tell it. But I'll tell you, if you needed something, she was always there because she would bite. She would bite, you know, if she didn't like what I was doing or I wasn't doing it the way she thought I should. And then I'd have to explain to her, but this is the proper way. And we'd finally come to a conclusion. But I have missed that woman so much since she left here because we just, you know, we ate together, we lived together, we, you know, did everything together for a long time. So I've missed her since she's been gone from here. I miss her now. But I will tell you, sitting here in this church today, I don't know if anybody has noticed the lights fluttering. just telling you. She's here with us, and she's letting us know.
Thank you for your patience. Barb Camming was my first mentor at Trinity MCC. I was a graduate student finishing up a master's in rehabilitation and mental health counseling, and I got elected for my first term as lay delegate. And there was a Florida network coming up, and so she told me, what happened at networks. She made sure, knew I'd had some student government experience, things like that, and some national stuff with Organizations of the Blind. But she said, this is what happens, this is what you do, this is what you don't do. Well, I get to the conference. I'm in Jacksonville, so I fly there. And I get to Fort Lauderdale, fancy 5-star hotel, the whole thing. And then Barb comes up to me at this fancy dinner at the keynote, and she says, oh, by the way, you have to speak in a few minutes. And I said, what? She said, oh, we're getting an award. I said, well, first off, what are you doing here? I said, I'm lay delegate. Okay, I understand why I'm here. Oh, well, I'm on some board or something, and I do this and I do that. And she's listening, and finally someone came, Barb, shh. Yeah. And so Barb and I got to know each other well. And during my lay ministry, Barb was always there to give me a nudge or a shove and say, you need this, you need that. Dovey, knock it off. Okay. So then Barb Hawes came to me after we had an event here. And when the social hall was donated, we had a guest here who used a power chair. And MCC embraces the Americans with Disabilities Act to the best that we are able around the world. And that means trying to make our facilities as accessible and accommodating as possible. And our pastor here, when she came to me and she said, why don't you have what's on the PowerPoint or the programs? And she said, after today, that didn't happen again. So, thanks to Catherine. But to finish up, I'll just say that Hawes and Canning and I, because I'd gotten a small inheritance from a relative, and the church put in some money too, because things always go a little bit over budget. You never know. And so that's why we have concrete and an extended disabled parking and all the way back to there. So every place you look, their hands are on this place. Canning and Hawes are everywhere. So every time you look at something, whether it be David and Witt, or Barb and Barb, and many others too, but their presence is here. So they're not gone. There's a piece of them in every part of this place. So thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to share? Peterson?
I'm not going to come up this far, but
People at home can't hear you. So
oh,
you
well,
need to-
thank you. Just for a short minute,
Shall I? I'm going to poke you if you go too long.
I can, yes. Everything has to be bigger with me. I just want you to know
There you go.
that I'm one of the Barbers. Now, the ones that were talked about today weren't here. And we're really grateful that we all got a chance to know these people, because there were 6, and they were very simple. There was the first 2 we talked about. Then there was the Barber and the Barbara, which people thought was really novel, and that was us. And then there was 2 more. And those two people also, their lives were very busy because of all of us. And today, we're the only one left here. Like David is the only one left here. But we're going to be staying here for you for a while and letting you know how much every one of you that I can look at right in the eye and say, we have loved you for all of this time, and you have given us a life like you never can believe because of those talky little sick people called the 6 women who are out there driving everybody else crazy and wondering why we keep talking. Thank you.
Judy? It was Judy and then Chris? So it was somebody else. It's fine. Judy, then Chris.
Okay, I'm not a Barb. I'm Judy. I had a little bit to do with this church building. Yeah, I kind of met the B's together, BH and BC, at the same time, and it was all by accident. I found myself by accident at the church where this started, which was at the Unitarian Church in Gainesville. And so it was an interesting experience. And I went into the building, it was pitch dark, and I'd never been there. I'd never even seen it or anything like that. And I had no idea why I was there. All of a sudden, I was just there. And I went in the building, and there was only one seat left, and I didn't see it. And everybody was standing up against the wall. And I was like, well, I guess I'll see if there's another chair down here. So I'm walking down to a seat next to wherever. And the next thing I know is there's a person standing up against the wall, and they're pointing to a chair that happens to be empty. And so I sat down in the chair, and I'm looking at the preacher talking and stuff like that. And I'm listening and stuff like that. And I had never been to church, really. I'd never been to church. I had no religion, and that's what made me wonder why I was here and what brought me here. I didn't know anything about God or Jesus or anything, and I didn't really have my mind open to that. So I went in and was sitting there and everything, and the preacher was talking, and it was a woman preacher. And I'd never heard of a woman preacher. And so then once it was over and everything to that effect, I was pretty frustrated by it and upset, and I didn't know where that was coming from. I was crying like a baby because I'd never heard it preached. I'd never heard a sermon. So, but I sat there and listened to it and everything like that, and I had the plan to escape at the same time as well. And I was going to get up and go and out the door. That didn't work. I happened to be sitting next to BH. So I'm like, okay, so she stops me, and this was a huggy church. So she reaches over, she says, hi, my name is Barbara Hawes. What is your name? And I said, Judy. And she said, well, what do you do? And I said, I'm a contractor. She's like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah. She says, well, I'm Barb Canning, and Bob Hawes, and my partner is Barbara Canning. And I'm little Barb because I'm 5'4", and Barbara Canning is big Barb because she's 5'9". So I said, okay, well, that'll be a better way to be able to break down who you are. So she says, well, you're a contractor, so you build things and stuff like that? I said, yeah. And she says, well, you may be an answer to my prayers. And I just started laughing. I was like, no, not likely. Not this one. And she's like, no, seriously, I want to know if I can meet with you and talk to you about we're not really part of this church. We have our church is being built across town. And I was hoping you'd be able to come over and look at the drawings and see where we are, come out and see the site, and see if you can help us. I was like, well, can't hurt to do that. So we made an appointment to come out here, and I saw and met and saw the drawings, and I pulled into the property, and it was beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of property. They had opened up the area for people to drive in and everything, and the building was a great big steel oven. It had nothing in it except for heat. And this was about July that I was here. And so I saw some people that were working. David was here, and Whit was here, and a couple of the people were here. And so then I met Barbara Canning as well. And so to talk to both of them and everything like that, I had to see that they were both tenacious in different ways, but at the same way. Barbara Canning was bound and determined to get this building built. And Barbara Canning, I always get the two confused. BH, Little Barb, that's where I go by. She was bound to get to this building built. And BC, Big Barb, she was supportive of that every which that way that needed to be. So she would come out, but they were both very tenacious because they had to grow up in an era where gays were in danger all the time. And we could lose our jobs, we could lose our schools, we could be skipped out of school, we could be terminated in any way, shape, or form. And yet they continued doing what they were doing. And they wanted this place, and that's why it's built out here so far, because they wanted this place to be for a safety place for people like us. And I was just now coming out, so I didn't have a real clue of what all was going on and how all of this worked and everything like this. But I knew construction. But we were talking, and I was like, well, I know construction, but I've never done anything with a Quonset hut. So I don't make any promises, but I will do my best, and I think I can figure it out. We'll work on it. So we started meeting on a regular basis and everything, and we were getting it done. And people were working and everything, and I didn't know if this was going to work because this was done with all volunteers over many, many years, okay? So in 1987, I think it was, this was the first arch that was lifted. And Barbara would run around with a little video camera all the time and take pictures of everybody when they were clearing it up and getting it all ready and everything like that. So she was telling me what these things were doing, and then she gave me a video about it, and I watched the video, and they were documenting what was happening. And one of the people that was working on the site here, I believe it was Marcia, and she made a comment in there that lifting that arch was a real trip. And I looked at the video and I watched the experience, and I was like, I would call it more like terrifying. So, I just feel like, God really wanted this place built. He insisted on it. He insisted on me being here. He insisted Barb to do her thing, both the Barbs to do their thing. Barbara Hawes, she was a mechanical kind of person. Barbara Canning was a money kind of person. She was able to maneuver with the books and everything to that effect, and she helped keep everything going and everything. And so as we were getting progression and everything like that, and the building was coming along, we got to a point that we were we were framed up finally. We figured it out and everything. And we had to get it all wired, get all duct work, got all everything in, all at the same time. It basically had to flow at the same time. But we didn't have enough money going on. So I talked to Barb about it, BH, and she was like, okay, we'll fix that. So she went and she gathered up about a half a dozen people or more, and they came out to a picnic table and everything like that. She said, okay, this is what we got to do. Judy needs this much money in order to progress. So we need to find a way to make that kind of money. When everybody sat down at that table today, they started emptying retirement accounts, emptying savings accounts, emptying all this stuff. They were going to make this. They were all called to do this church. And they've been blessed having done so since then. So, I told them that I would get them to that point. I would get them done. I would get them the building done and everything like that. But I still can't come back because it's overwhelming for me. And now that the Barbs are gone and everybody that I worked with there, because we would have so many different people, and David and I are pretty much, I know there's a few more, but David and I were here every day. Al and I were here, but Al's already gone. Don D was here every day. There were so many people that were here every day, but so many of them are gone. And I miss them all, the Barbs especially too, because we would all go camping, we would go to the beach, we would go to do different things. We'd go, every morning we'd go to breakfast, it seemed like, after church, and we'd go to Perkins. And we'd enjoy our breakfast and stuff like that. But this church has to be kept alive. And I'm glad you all are still able to be here, and even if it's on Zoom or whatever, we want to keep this alive. I'm glad you're able to do it, and I really appreciate this, and I miss the Barbs very much, and I miss the church, but I'm glad you all are able to keep it going. Thank you all very much.
Okay, Chris, if you want to come up. Well, Chris is coming up. For some of you haven't seen him for a long time. He's a lot bigger than he was. Judy, you talk about the legacy and, you got to keep it going. I shared yesterday at the interment that the last thing Barbara Canning said to me before she moved up to Washington State was, come here, I've got something to say. I always worried when she said that because I didn't know what was coming next. And she said, you look after my church. And I was like, ooh, okay. And what I hadn't realized is that she'd said it to about 8 different people. So she wanted that legacy to carry on.
The last time I was here, y'all know me, I was this tiny, or even tinier. But she was, besides all that, there was many Barbs. It all got confusing, they'd all mixed together. You got Barb Dean, you got just too many. So you just start naming them by their last name, and you figure it out mostly. But she was an amazing person, and she meant a lot to us. Even when she moved, I remember seeing her before she moved, and she gave us a card and everything. But I wondered about how much, I wanted to learn her more. And back then I was only 13 when she left, but I wish I got to talk to her more. I didn't really know much. I was little, but I didn't talk to her much either ways. I remember going around her pool, and she would invite us, and I'll say one thing. Every time she got in the car, the first thing my granny asked was if she had her urinate, because she'd always forget about it. We'll be halfway down to where we need to go, she'll turn right back just to get it. Granny don't play around like that, but she was an amazing person. I wish I could say goodbye, and I wish I could talk to her more, but the past is the past, and God has a future for her. So, and God has a future for all of us. But she meant a lot to us, and I wish I could talk to her again. But she's in this building, and she cares about everyone here. Because everybody here, even her, anybody, they're all family. Doesn't matter on who what. Thank you. Have a good day.
Well, Chris, I never thought I'd see the day where you'd be up behind a microphone. That's amazing. Is anybody else? Or I think we're kind of at that point. You want to say something? Okay. It sure do.
Chris, you touched on the Irish, the Celtic part of our family. Because in Celtic spirituality, there is only a thin veil between us and those who are on the other side. So talk to her, okay?
Yes, indeed. She would talk back, that's for sure. So I'm going to invite us at this time to sing one more time. Here I Am Waiting, which is also known as Eagle's Wings. As we come to the end of our formal part together, I will offer prayers and a final commendation and a benediction. I want to remind you that Barbara didn't want flowers, but if you wanted to make donations, she wanted them to the endowment fund that she was part of setting up in this church, a legacy. Also, Susan has said, if you don't eat all the food, you have to take it with you. The second, third, and fifth plate until it's all gone. Will you pray with me? As Barbara's life reminds us that love is not erased by loss, and that the relationships that shape us continue to shape us long after we can no longer see or touch each other. Her story invites us to trust that love is stronger than time and deeper than death. Gracious God, we give thanks for Barbara's life, for all that she gave and all that she received. We give thanks for BH as well and the love that they shared, and for the ways that that love continued to sustain her. We trust her now to your care, not as strangers, but as beloved, held in a peace beyond our understanding and a love beyond our imagining. So I invite you to go now in peace. Carry Barbara's memory as a blessing. Honor the love that she shared and the life that she lived. And may the love that held BH and BC together hold you also today and always. Amen.